I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network. Today on the James Altucher Show.
I was scared to death. I wasn't feeling that I belonged on Wall Street. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. And to this day, in my opinion, for me, the worst feeling in the world is to feel like you don't belong or don't know where you belong. I was looking for advice. I was turning to people. What should I do? What should I do? I literally, if you looked like somebody that could help me, I'd come up to you on the street and go, listen, here's my problem. Because I still, up to that point, felt so silly, stupid, whatever the word is, childish, that I was doing this comedy thing, you know. You're an investment banker on Wall Street, for God's sake. And I think ultimately what I needed validation from Wall Street that it was okay. I was still looking for someone to tell me what to do, and I'm an adult man.
And you know, I think it is. People start off on that standard ladder that they were taught from childhood. This is the ladder you have to go on until you die. And yeah, we all want to do different things with our lives, and understanding that life shouldn't be just one thing anyway. All right, so I've got Paul Mecurio on the podcast, and he's got such an interesting life story. He was an investment banker, a lawyer, and then for some reason quit all of that and started writing jokes for Jay Leno, then started being a stand-up comedian, then was on The Daily Show, then The Colbert Show. He's won all sorts of awards and traveled all over the country doing comedy. He's been on a ton of other stuff that we could talk about. But I'm interested. So Paul, first, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Boy, I hear my credits. I'm impressed with myself now.
I only read like 1/10 of your credits. I'm just looking at Wikipedia here. Mercurio was seeing a role opposite John Cleese in the ABC sitcom Wednesday. There's like a nonstop credits.
I know.
For you.
Well, you gotta. It's a credit driven business. You know what I mean? That's part of the thing. That's part of the. You know, you got a lot of executives that are afraid to take chances on people that aren't known. So over time, you build these credits, and it gives you instant credibility in the room to get cast and stuff, to get development deals. Because if a show fails, I believe they can say, well, I put Matt LeBlanc in the show. He's a huge star. It's not my fault. I didn't put, Joe Schmo, who nobody knows, but is a really funny guy. So,
but it's interesting, though, that it is kind of a validation-oriented industry. You know, there are gatekeepers, and in order to get past the gatekeepers, credits are sort of the currency used to open the gate.
Yeah, and then, sort of there's like everything in life, there's nuance. So some credits seem like they matter, but they don't. Some people are impressed with people for the wrong reason, maybe. But I think for the most part, it does give an indication of like, okay, this person it's no different than when I was on Wall Street as a lawyer, a banker. You start out as a junior associate, you become a mid-level associate or a vice president of a bank, and then a junior partner, and then a senior partner, and then you retire and have an affair and blow up your whole fucking life.
I knew about everything about the affair part. So
sorry, is it okay if I swear? I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with this. Like there is a method to the madness, although it's a much more subjective business, which was the biggest thing I had to get my head around coming from the world I came from. And especially I did M&A deals. And M&A deals are like, and when you're with two very big firms, so we had all the resources.
Just an M&A deal, just to describe, is you would be the banker or the lawyer negotiating the terms when company A was buying company B.
Right, like ExxonMobil, like that, or like Dr. Pepper. We sold Dr. Pepper, and I analogize it now to like you eat a steak and then have salad, and like that's the acquisition. And then you chew that up, and then a couple of days later, you take a huge shit, and that's the merger. And I was the colon; it all went through me. But
at first I was thinking that was a really horrible analogy, like I wasn't getting it all. But okay, I could kind of see that because most acquisitions, but this is unrelated to anything we're talking about. Most of the times when company A buys company B, it doesn't work. I don't even know why companies buy companies because most of them don't work.
It's for cost savings, and it's to eliminate redundancies, And the whole negotiation is off a discounted cash flow analysis that goes back 5 years.
All right, that's boring.
So
by the way,
whatever. But yeah, I'm getting nerdy. But so it's similar in the business, and like as in the business I was in before, there is sort of. You do take steps and stages, and, if you're a comic in New York, you just want to get past at a club like Stand Up New York, which you're a part owner of, or the Comedy Cellar, and then you get past, but you're getting 2 o'clock in the morning spots. Then you want weekday spots, and you get those, and you want weekend spots, then you want a headline on the road. And it all starts to happen if you're doing it right. It takes time, and then you start to get TV credits, and then that opens doors to do other mediums beyond live performing.
But let's start at the beginning.
Yeah,
you got into investment banking and the law. Presumably, let's say it was, and this doesn't sound cynical. I mean, I don't want this to sound cynical, but this is the reality. Someone gets into investment banking because you end up retiring with a lot of money, with retirement money.
Yeah.
And same thing with the law. So if you combine the two, you make more money.
Yeah.
So I presume, and maybe there's a little bit of love for the law as well, and you are intellectual in that way, and so you enjoy the puzzle-like process of putting a deal together. But but it's so much. I mean, I've known a lot of people in the banking world. It is so much work. So much of it's excruciating. Your boss might call you. Like you might be like sitting down at 8 p.m. with your girlfriend about to have a romantic date, and your boss calls you and says, "Hey, meet me at the airport in a half hour. We're going to Houston for an oil deal."
You're nailing it. And
I've been there, done it.
It's like and so the part of what you just said is really the nub of everything about the love of it. And we can come back to that when we talk about my move to stand-up. But what happened was I was a middle-class kid from Providence, Rhode Island. My father put floors in for a living, and my parents have a small furniture business, which my mother still has, and she's 90 and still running it. And I grew up in a business. I was comfortable with business, but for some reason I was interested in the law. Now, I grew up in a part of our society where being in entertainment, my parents were high school educated. They wanted me to go to college, get a good job, white-collar job, which I was going to do, have 2.2 children, the white picket fence, retire, and live in Florida. Like, that's kind of what we're trained. That's not bad. It's just kind of what societally...
Just out of curiosity in that, what was your number? When you started with investment banking, given that, and again, somewhat cynically, but I don't mean to be, given that there's this focus on money, what did you feel was the number you needed, and then you could kind of go to Florida and retire and play golf?
Well, it's funny, it's the competitive nature, and I think in all of us, and especially in our society when it comes to money, my number started out smaller than it once I started getting the bonuses, it grew, because I was like, can I walk away from this?
Right.
So I think my initial number was probably like 5 million. I thought, I could live a fairly comfortable life, not be crazy, and through an S&P 500 index fund, live off the interest or whatever. And then it changed to I think I had it up to 20 million in my head.
Really?
Yeah, and it wasn't beyond, like if you're averaging $3 to $4 to $5 million a year with bonuses, and you're not crazy with your money, that's doable,
And so it's kind of like you had to like strip away all of your numbers and goals and everything when you made the switch. But I just wanna say, like, with Credit Suisse, from what I remember, they would pay their executives, like, you would get, like, let's say $1 million worth of options as a bonus, but it would vest over 4 years, and so you're always getting these bonuses that vest years later.
Right.
So it's like this. That's step number one for keeping you reeled in, like shackled to the company.
Right.
And then step number two is that, look, all of your peer group at that point, they're buying Upper East Side apartments for millions of dollars, and then the place in the Hamptons, and then vacations, and they vacation together.
Right.
So now your lifestyle does require you to go from 5 million to 20 in your number, depending on what you expect to make after taxes.
Right.
So the culture itself shackles you to the
you
company.
totally nailed it. You start out buying your first suit, business suit you interview with, you buy at Macy's. Then you upscale, you buy one at Bloomingdale's. Then it's Barney's, then it's Bergdorf's. All off the rack. We don't do off the rack 5-6 years in. What tailor do you use? And so you're looking at fabrics in your office. It gets, you have the cufflinks. I have a shit ton of cufflinks. I don't know where. I have suspenders. I have Hermes ties. I got Armani suits. They're all hanging in my closet. Every once in a while, I'll wear one to go do a TV appearance.
We're about the same size. Maybe I should borrow some of your Armani suits.
I should start wearing them when I work at the club. People are like, what is wrong with you? And then I bought my apartment on the Upper West Side, a 2-bedroom co-op, old-fashioned doorman building, like fancy schman. Like, I had a Saab. But I wasn't like money. By the way,
the Saab, I'm not impressed by.
Everything else it was a Saab, those cool-looking Saabs when they didn't look like every other car, which ended up drowning, I'll tell you later, in a flood. But, so it was a combination of, I can't say that I woke up every morning going, I have to be a lawyer. This is in my body and my soul, and I'm going to make the world better. It was like, this seems like a good job. I like to think. I like to read. I like to write. Blah, blah, blah. I like to debate. Oh, and I like business. I'll combine the two. And then if I'm going to do it, I am the kind of person, like, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it at the highest A level. So that's why I put myself on Wall Street. And I was fortunate enough to get a job. I did a summer associateship, which is a summer associateship job as a lawyer is such a bullshit job, because they make it, they wine and dine you, and they take you to all these amazing places and these events, and they spend all this money on you. And then once you start working, you're like, it's indentured servitude.
Right. I was going to use the word slave.
Slave, yeah, there you go.
Indentured servitude is fine too.
Yeah. And so I was living the life. And what you said earlier, the guy calls you up, it's 8 o'clock, you got to be there. It was exactly like I was pulling all-nighters on a regular basis, because we were doing hostile tender offers and proxy contests, which for people listening, it's basically like a company doesn't want to be acquired, but they're a public company, and if there are enough powerful shareholders, they can take over the company or the board. And I'm doing all-nighters, but I'm enjoying it. Like, I don't know why, I really liked the hustle of it, not hustle in a scam way, but just the fast pace of it and everything else. And not a lot of the junior associates liked it. So I was getting a lot of the work. And suddenly I was working for the rainmakers, the big shots at the firm, like directly, because I was one of the few young associates that was basically willing to, I had no life. Like, I would go to work. Thank God I'm with my wife, who's my girlfriend since high school, and she was totally cool. So I'd come home to the Upper West Side, and I'd sleep for a couple of hours, literally, and then I'd go back to work all day and all night. And then I'd come back, and maybe I'd have a Saturday off.
Would she be unhappy? Like, hey, Paul, want to spend more time with you? Or
well, you've met me. You know my personality. People don't want to spend a lot of time with me. No, my wife, I think if we had just started dating, like most people, like out of college, she would have been like that. But we were together at that point, probably 7, 8, 9 years. She saw me studying like a lot down in law school in DC, and she'd come down. And so she knows like that was my drill, and she was cool about it. And she did feel like over time, as I became more senior, I'd be able to control my schedule more, which would have been true if I stayed on to be a senior person. But I was doing these deals. I'm sitting across from T. Boone Pickens on one deal, who's like a huge, like, this is an Italian kid. I paint houses in the summer for my father. Like, it was like crazy.
So you're at CSFB in the mid to early 90s?
It was toward the latter part of the 90s. Yeah, I was a law firm, Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, before that, and I made the jump to investment banking. But it was it was basically the same thing. I was doing merger deals, but I went from the legal side of the deal to the investment banking side of the deal.
So do you know Mark Kennelly, Mark Patterson?
I know Patterson. I don't know Kennelly. But
So I used to do some stuff with Mark Patterson back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, and now he runs Maitland Patterson, this big debt fund.
Well, that was the other thing. When I made the move, I started to run a race with myself that I was never going to win, ever, which was, you mentioned your friends getting houses and cars. So, and I don't know if I'm getting too far ahead, but we can come back how I made the move. But I made this move, and I can get into detail how it happened. And I unraveled my life.
And again, wife was cool with that because that could be potentially dangerous.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and I completely unraveled my life because what happened was, I'll just tell you how it happened real quick. There was a private function. They had this big fancy open house, and Jay Leno was a private entertainment. Now, at that point, I had been making short films on the side, and I don't know why.
What were they about?
I made one about a guy who was a glove salesman at a fancy store, but he only had one hand. And then, just couldn't deal with the fact he still had one hand. So I got when I was in law school, I would lie in bed at night in my little shitty one-room apartment. I lived down in D.C., and I would think of ideas for films. I always loved comedy. I don't know why. So I started writing down. I buy a camera when I come out with one of my first paychecks, and I start making short films. And then I decided...
How short? How short is short?
3 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
So then I decided I want to make a film. So, and I actually used Louis C.K.'s cinematographer, Paul Kessner at the time, and who still has been a cinematographer. And I made a 16 millimeter black and white film, which we edited on a Steenbeck, which is an old machine that the old-fashioned way. We literally rented one and they carried it into his apartment. So there's a big and tall store at 52nd and Madison, and my office was like literally around the corner, literally. And I decided that was the location I was going to use. And then I'm shooting in the middle of the day, and I'm completely panicked that people at the firm are going to know I was supposed to be sick, and they're going to see me. I didn't have a permit. I'm on the sidewalk. I'm totally freaking out. So I make this film. And people kept saying to me, it cost me $12,000 all in to make the film. They're like, why are you spending this money? I go, I don't know. Why are you making it? All I could say is, I don't know. I have to make it. That's all I could say. But the
important thing is, you didn't just lay at night thinking, oh, here's an idea for a film. I'll do this once I make my number at CSFB. You said, I'm gonna do my job, but I'm also gonna have this. You made the decision to do it and not just think it. What do you think led to that decision to, I'm going to do this?
I think that something happened. It was a mixed cocktail of two things. It was always a real love for like comedy and TV and movies, just watching. I just loved it. Like I'd always get permission to stay up late when I was a little kid to watch any comedian on Johnny Carson. Then I would go into school and I'd do the comedian's jokes, like whoever it was, Jay Leno. My friends would laugh. And a disenchantment with what I was doing. Because what happened was I get bored quickly. So I'm doing these deals, and these are fucking sexy deals. Like they're on literally, we would have code names for them because they were hostile, and then they'd come out. They were on the cover of the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and I'm working on them, and I'm just this middle-class kid from an Italian neighborhood in Providence, Rhode Island. But what I did was, okay, I got the deal, you get the forms, you fill the thing out, you do the analysis, you negotiate, and then you do another one, and then you do another one. And while they're different, and the most interesting thing was the due diligence you have to do on each. So if I'm buying your company and it's a healthcare company, you have to do a crash course on the healthcare industry. So I'd come to your offices for 2 weeks. I'd go through all your books. I'd learn every aspect about your industry so I could properly price the deal or negotiate the deal from the legal side. Well, I started to go, well, is this all there is? Like I wanted more. And then this thing kind of was in me. So I started to play with that. But not thinking I was going to leave Wall Street to do it. I really didn't know the answer to the question. I can tell you where I was standing when the guy asked me that question, why are you spending $12,000 on a film? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. My friends were spending $12,000, part of
on a Rolex.
A Rolex or, a suit or a pair of shoes. So I make it and I start to put it into festivals and it gets into the HBO Aspen Comedy Festival.
What year?
This is probably maybe around 98.
I went to the festival that year.
It was crazy. So I go And it's all the big shots in comedy and entertainment are there. So they have and I sit in this movie theater and the screen comes on and my fucking name is on the screen. And that's my movie on the screen. And a thing that my whole life, this big black rectangular thing, it wasn't ever me up there. It was everybody else's stuff. Now it's me. So now my head's starting to kind of explode. So then they offer all the young filmmakers to go to a luncheon with established filmmakers. So we get in a van, we go through the woods, then we go to a clearing and there's a horse-drawn carriage, which then takes us to more woods and there's this massive house. You walk in and there's a brook running inside the house. Not a man-made brook, a natural brook. And I'm like, you have money when you just build your house over nature like that. And I'm looking around and there's this picture of this guy. He's in every picture, but it's like him and Paul Newman, him and Robert Redford, him and George, like I'm telling you, right? I'm like, okay, this is something big. I round the corner. These are the people at the luncheon. The Hudlin brothers, Spike Lee, Albert Brooks, and Woody Allen were at the thing. And I told them that my mother was sick and I was in Rhode Island because I was supposed to be working that weekend. And I'm sitting in this mansion, like, I don't know what's going on. So I come back and then I start writing, and I'm writing material and jokes. And I would have a passworded file at work, and I would put my jokes into this passworded file. I don't know why I was writing the jokes. I didn't plan to be a stand-up. I didn't plan to be a writer. I was on track. And when I tell you I had a sweet deal, I was probably going to make partner or whatever. So Leno's performing at this private function that I mentioned, and I go up and I wasn't.
I want to back off one second. At that dinner with all those filmmakers, what'd you learn there?
I learned kind of, and it was an affirmation of what I did, which is you just have to make it. Don't take no for an answer. We talked a little bit about technical stuff of shooting and whatever, but it was a more bigger picture thing of how to survive and excel in the business whether you're in front or behind the camera. But it was really actually comforting because each one of them had a story or more than one story of like hitting a wall, didn't think they were going to make it.
Like Spike Lee, what was his?
He just, because he was so borderline militant black in his voice at the time. He said, I just didn't think I'd ever get my movies made because Hollywood didn't want to hear some angry black guy from Brooklyn telling Whitey that he's a fucking douchebag. And, and Albert Brooks was quirky. And Woody Allen, well, he probably had it easier than the others. So it was a real, like, not literally, but it just in terms of spirit, a rah-rah kind of thing that made you walk away going, oh. But for me, I'm in my head going, well, I'm not going to really do this for a living. I'm just, whatever.
Yet they're identifying obstacles they had to go around. Your obstacle was the fact that you were going to get rich if you just stayed on this safe path.
Right.
And that was actually an obstacle to your creativity and your success
that's a really great way of
entertainer.
putting it. That was a long range. And then the other obstacle was just not getting caught. Because I couldn't tell them I was doing this because I knew that if these are like white,
you wouldn't get your bonus.
I wouldn't get my bonus. They would say that's not appropriate. They'd want to start looking at it seriously because these are like white shoe firms with like multi-billion dollars at stake. So so I knew and I wasn't. My girlfriend, now my wife, Carol, who were living together, she knew that I was doing the film and stuff, but there was this other thing inside of me that was starting to come out, which was the jokes. And I didn't tell anybody I was writing the jokes. I was very self-conscious about my jokes. I was very so I'm writing the jokes, And Jay Leno's at this thing. You want to come down? I'm like, I can't. I got like hours of work. One of my friends is sick. Just come for an hour. So I never forget it to this day. So I stand up and I'm putting my coat on and I'm standing over my keyboard and I'm like, fuck it. And I hit the print button. And I printed out all of my jokes. And it dawned on me then how much I was writing because I literally had like 15 pages of jokes.
Is that the jokes right there you're holding up?
No, these are this notes and stuff. But so I go down. Leno does the show, private show for like 150, 200 people. And I go up to him. I say I'm a huge fan, which I was at the time, is true.
But okay, he hears that from everybody.
Right.
How did you distinguish yourself?
I said have jokes that I wrote, and I don't know if you need jokes, but you can have these jokes. I'm never going to use them. And I think that's how I distinguished myself. And I thought he was going to say, no, I don't take jokes. And he goes, okay. He takes jokes. And I start to walk away. And he goes, hey, come back here. I go, what? He goes, you might want to put your name and your phone number on here so I know how to reach you. So here I am, like Mr. Wall Street, big guy, right? And he takes the jokes. I think this guy's been doing it a long time. I got a really nice blow off. I don't know why I gave him the jokes. I didn't wake up that morning going, I need to be a writer on a late night talk show. I need to go do stand up. So it was coming out of me in pieces, in pieces. And now in retrospect, I could see it clearer. But when I was in it, and then I had to make this tough decision to leave, and the fear and the doubts surrounding that decision, I was a mess. Like, we can get to that in a minute. But so I hand him the jokes, and then 2 days later, my phone rings. Hey, it's Paul there. It's Jay Leno. And I told my friend David.
Is this your Jay Leno impression, by the way?
Very good. I don't do. That's why I don't do him in my act. I always say it's like letting him helium out of a balloon very slowly. And I thought it was my friend David who does voices, and I told him about my encounter with Jay Leno. I go, yeah, right, really funny, Dave. He goes, no, it's Jay Leno. I go, yeah. I go, you do a lousy Jay Leno. And I said that to Jay Leno. And he goes, I'm Jay Leno. I think I do a pretty good Jay Leno. So then I realized it was Jay Leno, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And he goes, I read your stuff. It's clean, and I need stuff for the Tonight Show monologue. So I'll hire you to start sending jokes in for the Tonight Show monologue. And if I use anything, I'll pay you per joke. He goes, don't leave your day job yet, but I think you got something there. And I go, I'll pay you $50 a joke. And he goes, what do you do for a living? I go, I'm a lawyer. And he starts laughing. He goes, I knew it. I go, why? He goes, you write like a lawyer. You're way too wordy. He goes, just get to the punchline. I would have like 4 lines just to get to the punchline. I was giving him stage direction, like make funny face here. And he goes, I've been doing this a while. I know when to make a funny face.
And thinking about it, just context, like since the 70s, he was like kind of he was the guy, classic stand-up
He's the
comedian.
guy that taught Letterman to be a good stand-up.
All of them.
He was
him,
the guy.
Letterman, Robin Williams, they're all kind of like started the same time at the store.
And the godfather of those guys, I should actually send you I had him on my podcast, and you should try to get him on yours, was the guy that opened, why am I forgetting his name? He opened for Frank Sinatra all the time. Anyway, it'll come to me. But yeah, Leno was the guy. And Leno was a really good club comic. Now he... on the Tonight Show, he had, you can't do your club comedy, so it was a little different. But so I said, okay.
Well, what were some of the jokes in those initial packet that you sent him?
Oh, it was like, guys on motorcycles weaving through traffic. And he goes, well, by the way, I'm a big motorcycle guy, so I'm not going to do jokes about it's like how much I hated that they would drive you through traffic. The joke that he called me the following week, he said, I'm going to do one of your jokes on the Tonight Show tonight. And I'm like, whoa. So I found a way to get out of work early, which for me was like 9 o'clock at night. And I went and bought a bottle of champagne. And my girlfriend and I went up to 81st and Central Park West to Dave and Lynn Burke's apartment, who we grew up with in Rhode Island. And he did my joke. And I popped the champagne. And my head blew off my fucking shoulders. Because here's this box that I watched my whole life since I was 4. And my words came out of that box. Huh. And that was way more compelling than sitting across from T. Boone Pickens, being part of a team negotiating a merger deal of billions of dollars that's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
And so it's interesting. You kind of moved yourself, and you expressed this in a visceral way, but I'll describe it in a different way. You moved yourself from being near the top of one hierarchy, that's a very impressive hierarchy, this sort of investment banking world, to the bottom of another hierarchy. And you didn't say, oh, no, I deserve still to be near the top because I know how to already be successful at one thing. I should be kind of close to successful here. You were so naive, and at the bottom of this hierarchy, you didn't even put your name and phone number down. It's like you were like a base amateur.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't really give him the jokes with the idea that anything was going to happen other than maybe he'd use one of my jokes.
What was the joke he used?
The first joke he used was about This Old House, the refurbishing show on PBS, how it doesn't reflect reality because in the show, like they're always under budget, on time. They do extra work. The guy's clean shaven, but in real life he's drunk. He's showing crack. He's hitting on your wife, going through your sock drawer. Just through a list of things, and it did really well. So then I became obsessed with writing jokes So I was going to deal meetings with 2 notebooks, and one was for the deal and the other was for notes, but I wasn't taking deal notes. I was supposed to keep the notes for the meetings, and I have to go back and ask somebody else in the meeting what happened, because I was writing observations down and then writing jokes. And then he kept doing my jokes, and then he said, you could try the jokes out before you send them to me. And I go, how do I do that? He goes, go to open mic nights. I go, what's that? Like, this is what your naivete is perfect. Like, you totally hit it on that. I'm like, he goes, you would go to a bar. For those listening who don't know what it is, you go to a bar, and it's usually they have like a spare room in the back on a Tuesday night, and they stick a microphone in there, and then it's a way for the bar to make extra money, and you go do 5 minutes as an amateur, along with like poets and folk singers and whatever else. So I find out, I go, how do I find that? He goes, well, go to one of the big clubs and ask a couple of comedians. So I went to I think the Comic Strip or somewhere, and I said, and they told me the name of a couple of bars, and I went. And one of the places I worked was in the Bowery. It was called Downtown Beirut 2. And
I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was a complete shithole. It was
at that time, I used to go to the Luna Lounge for those on Monday nights. There was like Marc Maron would host, and everybody would do their thing. I don't know if you ever went to those.
I went to watch, but I didn't perform. And did you perform or watch?
No, I was just watching. Yeah, I was too scared to perform.
And again, I'm not like, okay, I'm going to do this. I couldn't not do it. You know what I mean? I guess it's like an alcoholic. I just could not take the drink. So
and so he wanted you to go to open mics because he felt probably that was a good way for you to learn to take the fat out of the jokes.
And to test the jokes and make them better. And he's right, But the only thing he was wrong about is open mic nights are the worst indicators of material, because it's either comics and performers waiting to get up who either don't want to support you because they're insecure assholes, or they're too nervous to focus on what you're doing, or kind of drunks. And so one of the reasons I talk to the audience in my act is it was a tool that I used early on to get people to pay attention to my material, because I realized I'm doing this material. Guys looking at their watches on their phone. And then I was like, fuck this one night. And I made people pay attention by talking to them. And then I start to talk to them, and then I would segue into a joke. So it was like feeding carrots to a baby with a scoop of ice cream, right, first. So I go, and I'll tell you this one thing that happened. Now, so I'm going to these clubs and they're dive bars. So I'm coming from this other world. So I was literally on the 54th floor of an office building, in a marble office, and then I am in a place that has a sign on the men's room door that says the toilet seat's only to be used to go to the bathroom, not to cut coke. Thank you, the management. That has a regular hooker that worked out of there who would give you notes on your joke. It was like a dysfunctional Cheers. It was fucking insane.
That's funny.
So
that is a sitcom.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, and I've actually written it as one, and we're about to try to get it made or get it out there, because the whole story this is just part of it, and it kind of unravels and stuff, and then goes in. Anyway, so you'll see. So I go there one night real quick, and you pick a number out of a hat, and I had to wait. So what I would do is I'd have a town car take me downtown, and I have them drop me off like 2 blocks from the club in the shadows, because I couldn't let anybody on this world know that I was a Wall Street guy. I take off my cufflinks and I mess up my hair and I tried to look as downtown as I could in my like $2,000, $3,000 Armani suit, right? Take my coat off, and I shirt tail, no tie. And I'm waiting to go on stage one night, and there's a folk singer on stage playing Blowing in the Wind, like badly, like just like a lot of that. And there's a fight at the pool table, and a guy runs out of the bar, and another guy grabs the side of his neck, and he starts screaming, "He cut me! That motherfucker, he cut me!" And it was a drug deal gone bad, and they knew each other, and the guy sliced him across the side of the neck with a box cutter, and he's drunk. But not the juggler, but he's bleeding a lot. So, I mean, he's not passing out, but there's blood, a lot of it. But nobody can calm him down because he's pissed. So he's like, and he's drunk. He's like, "He cut me, I'm going to get him." And his girlfriend's crying, like, "Oh my God, look at my boyfriend." He was like, the answer, my friend. And the guy just keeps playing. Like, he does not stop. Because you wait like a month, 2 months to get this spot, right? No, nothing is going to keep you from doing what you want to do. So now I'm supposed to be next. I think this is over. So I literally get up from the bar, I pay my bill, and I'm walking toward the door, and I'm 1 foot out the door, and I hear the MC go up and go, "All right, you guys ready for some comedy?" Now, I'm not doing it long enough to know that I don't have to go up. I can just walk, but I think I got to go up. So I go up, and I I did think, boy, I probably should acknowledge that this is going on because now the cops are there taking a report. You can hear their radios saying, 86 and 9. I'm going to boogie kick his ass. Like, and I say, it's nice to be here at downtown Beirut, too. I always wanted to follow a slashing. Thanks. I thought it was a pretty good line. Well, the guy heard me say slashing, and he thought I was busting his balls, the guy who got cut. And he had all these, like, bloody napkins, cocktail napkins, and was pressing them against the side of his face. And he goes, hey, you making fun of me? You think I'm going to take any shit from you? And he takes all these bloody napkins, and he wads them up, and he throws them at me. And they hit me in my shirt, my white shirt, and they, like, kind of stick, and then they fall off, and now I got a blood stain on my shirt. Now, a normal person at this point goes, I'm getting the fuck out of here. But I'm like, I'm staying. Just fuck this guy. I'm staying. I don't give a shit what happens. Nobody's paying attention. I'm bombing like the worst way you can possibly imagine. And I got blood all over me. And then the guy who he goes, are you still up there? This is the guy who got cut. I go, yeah. He goes, what are you doing anyway? I go, I'm trying to tell jokes. And he turns back to the crowd. He goes, I like jokes. Hang on a second. Hey, everybody, shut the fuck up. This guy's trying to tell jokes. And the whole place shuts up.
Oh my God, and he's still bleeding? Let's stop to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for listening. It means so much to me because I really love getting to do these podcasts and to talk to all of these incredible people. I learned so much, and I hope you learned so much as well. If you like the show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check out the show notes at jamesaltucher.com/podcast. Also, if you want to get my blog updates and other updates that I do, sign up for the newsletter at jamesaltucher.com. Once again, thanks so much for joining me on the journey of this podcast. Oh my God, and he's still bleeding?
When he yelled, a little bit of blood would like squirt out of his like a wound. It was the best 2 minutes I had because everybody was afraid not to pay attention to me. Mm-hmm. I get back in the car. I dress back up. I can't go home and get a new shirt because I was supposed to be gone an hour for dinner. These were dinner breaks. So all the other people were going to dinner at the firm. I was going to do open mic nights. It's like 11 o'clock. The senior partner's there. He's pissed as shit. He should have gone home 4 hours ago. I walk into the conference room. There's lawyers from Morgan Stanley. There's bankers from Morgan Stanley. There's lawyers from Skadden. There's JP Morgan, like all 15 guys, women. And I turned into a 12-year-old, which is like, like if you break your mother's vase and you glue it back together and you think she's never going to notice. And the minute she sees it, I turned into that kid. So I decided I'm just going to walk around with a file folder up against my blood stain, and no one's going to notice this like tomato-sized blood stain on my shirt. So I walk into the room, and my foot hits the carpet, and the senior partner's like, "Where have you been? Why do you have a blood stain on your shirt?" Like right out of the gates. I'm like, I'm fucked.
And he's angry.
He's very angry. He lives in Chappaqua. Steve Flood. Steve Flood didn't stay past 6 o'clock. He was a corner office guy, which means there are partners, and then there are partners, and there's like 4 corners in a square rectangle, and he had one of the 4. He was one of the guys. And I didn't have an answer. Now, at this point, I had been hiding this from the firm, but now my secret was going to get out. I'm like, oh shit. And I'm just this long pregnant pause, and I'm like, and then the lawyer goes, "What kind of shirt is that?" I go, "It's a Brooks Brothers shirt." Why? He goes, "I know how to get blood out of a Brooks Brothers shirt." And he starts club soda and lemon juice. And then another guy goes, "I like Armani for getting stains out." And they started to debate about what was a better shirt to get stains. And I just backed out of the room. And that became my life. I was living a secret double life. And I was hiding the stand-up from my girlfriend as I was really embarrassed.
Really? How come?
Because I felt like it was a trivial, insignificant, silly thing. And coming from the world that I was in, which was Wall Street, and then within Wall Street, as you know, M&A is like big testosterone, cigars and blah, blah, blah. I just felt like a douchebag, but I couldn't stop doing it. There was a night I had to hide. I'm about to go on stage, and senior partner's wife comes in with her friends, and she knows me. We've been to parties together. And I'm literally about to go up. I throw myself behind the bar, and I'm on my knees, and I'm going to the MC. "Bring me up as Paul Windmill." Windmill is the street I grew up on when I was a kid. He goes, what? I goes, just bring me up as Paul Windmill. He brings me up as Paul Windmill. And I did the entire set with my, basically almost my full back to the audience. Like I was kind of looking to my left with my left shoulder. And I did it for 5 minutes. And then I ran out the back door through the kitchen. I almost slipped in the kitchen because the floor was greasy. And I was having a nervous breakdown now because I'm doing these crazy intense deals. And I'm in these dive bars,
But not only that, you're risking. Let's just. I'm throwing out a number, but you're risking $1 million plus bonus.
Yeah.
If someone says, "Oh, we don't like this anymore,"
yeah, and there's no way they would have approved it. There's no way
and like they could even say that on December 31st, the last day of the year, and you don't get your bonus.
Right. Oh yeah, and
It
so
was
now,
cutthroat.
oh god, yeah.
Not like the other guy was cutthroat.
Right now, so now I have a dilemma. Because now I'm starting to really, even though the gigs are hell gigs, the reaction that I got from Leno doing my joke on TV paled by comparison to the reaction that I got when I did the joke.
Like in terms of your
Emotional,
emotions.
and here's what happened. And it took me a long time to figure this out. When you're an investment banker or a lawyer, you're whispering in the ear of the deal, the guy whose deal it is. It's not your deal. You're invested in it insofar as that you want to do well and get a big bonus and go buy a boat, but it ain't yours. You didn't really create anything. You didn't build anything from scratch. It ain't yours. I wrote these words. I put them together a certain way, and a guy said them, and a lot of people liked it and reacted to it. That's a whole other planet.
And then when you were doing the open mics, when did you realize it's not just getting up there and telling jokes to make them better for Leno? You would actually transform from a writer of jokes to a performer, to a stand-up comedian, which is
it's a great
different
question.
art form.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, a time frame, maybe like, I don't know, 8, 10, 11, maybe 8 to 12 months into it, I started to go, oh, this is cool. I could just, screw Leno, just do these jokes for me. Now, I'm not saying I was killing an open mic nights. I wasn't. Like literally, but this is how intoxicating it is. Let's say 3 times I go up, which is 3 5-minute sets over the course of a couple of weeks. Maybe I get 3 laughs total, true laughs. So that's 1 laugh a set. That was enough to make me think, I should keep doing this. I didn't think I was great, but that feeling, when you do stand-up, so you understand, there's this thing that just happened, like, holy fuck. I wrote that and I said it and you liked it. You know, part of it is insecurity, obviously, but like there was a fulfillment that I wasn't getting.
But what's interesting is a lot of people, and I'm assuming you're one of them, and a lot of listeners, and I was one of them, a lot of people are funny when they're in conversation with their friends.
Yeah.
They can get a laugh more than once a week.
Yeah.
You know, with their friends.
Yeah.
But there's something about, you can take a room full of strangers who all have different agendas, and like you said, some are listening, some aren't.
Yeah.
And you could suddenly bind them all together with a laugh that you wrote.
Right.
There's something special to that. It's an extraordinarily difficult skill.
Yeah, I mean, but I didn't realize it at the time, you know? Like, I think I watched these guys all these years do it on TV at a professional level and think, oh, that's pretty easy, you know?
Right, but they'd already been doing it like 20 years.
20 years. And then as I'm doing it, and I look back now when I talk about it out loud, it's like, there was no evidence that said I should have been a stand-up comic for a living. I don't think there really is for anybody when they start. I mean, maybe there's like a prodigy every once in a while. But I know what happened was, and the other thing too goes back to what you said about Wall Street at the very top of this, which is like, you know, you're enticed by the idea of money. I was enticed by a fairly vapid thing in entertainment, which was seeing myself on TV. I liked the idea of being a star, and I still do, and I really love seeing myself on TV. And I don't apologize for that. I think it's a really cool thing, and it's a cool maybe side benefit of what I do or what we do.
You know, it's funny how you see this at, let's say, the top level, like a Brad Pitt. Like they're always like, oh, you know, famous isn't all that it's cracked up to be. But the reality is, like, if someone walks up to you on the street and says, hey, I saw you on Colbert last night, I really liked it. That's like an amazing feeling.
Yeah, and you get treated differently. Quick story. I was in a town. I had trouble with my hotel room. The guy was kind of rude to me at the desk. It's a nice hotel. I didn't get upset with him. He was just kind of rude. I go upstairs, and a couple hours later, I come back down to go to dinner. He goes, Mr. Mecurio, I'm so sorry. I realized that I know you from The Daily Show. I saw you recently on Colbert. I called my wife. She's a huge fan. So let me fix that thing. Now, if I wanted him to come and paint my house, which I thought was kind of shitty, like, dude, if you could do it for me now, I'm not a different guy 2 hours later.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that doesn't suck, you know?
Right.
And so so this idea of, well, celebrity's got a lot of negatives to it. Maybe it has a few, but for the most part, it's a pretty cool fucking thing. And it is an affirmation when you get recognized, when you get some compliments from people for your work.
So did performing these jokes in front of an audience, did it improve your writing for Leno? Did Leno start taking more jokes?
Yeah.
And what, actually, let me reel back 1/2 inch, which is, what is a joke? What did Leno want?
He wanted stuff that I think, that could play to a broad audience. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it could play to a 25-year-old in New Jersey and a 78-year-old retiree in Wisconsin and everything in between.
Like, what's an example joke that Leno would like? By the way, did you know John Max?
No.
He did a lot of Leno's monologues for many years, and he wrote a book called Monologue, and he was on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on this show, and then maybe this was before your time.
His big head writer was a guy, Jimmy Brogan was his main head writer, and would go, and Leno goes out on Sunday nights and would try jokes out for the monologue for that week, and Brogan would go with him and take notes. They would do it at the Hermosa Beach Comedy Club. Yeah, that made my jokes less fat. That's what you said. And by fat, for people listening, I mean, it was just more concise, more efficient with use of words, figuring out where the punchline should be, figuring out what the right word is,
Like what's an example? It doesn't have to be funny. I just structurally, what's an example?
Well, I did something. I went on Pix 11 News the other 2 days ago, and to talk about the Super Bowl and just how there are people that just watch the Super Bowl once a year and they don't know terminology. So, for example, we were talking about the goalpost, right? So the way you would structure that joke is this thing. You show a picture of a goalpost. Is called a goalpost, not a pulley thing. Now, if you don't know what you're doing, you'll say it's not a pulley thing; it's a goalpost. So you put your punchline before the setup, and you end it on the word that's not funny. That's basic 101 writing, right? If you're just a person in life, you go that's not a goal, that's not a pulley thing; it's a goalpost. That's how somebody irritated would say that. So it's that kind of thing. It's just that's the real basics of comedy writing, and then
and just to take the lesson from it.
Yeah.
Make the funny word last. Have a premise,
right,
and make the funny word or the funny aspect that's last, or the punchline. Or whatever.
There's also certain words that numbers 13, I think, is funnier than 12.
Because of the hard,
some of the some people say K, like Buick, is funnier than Tercel, I mean, that stuff gets a little minutia for me. I mean, but I think that, there's a lot to go in.
And there's some observational, obviously the goalie post one is observational. A lot of people are watching the Super Bowl. It's sort of why are they watching this one day?
The other thing I had was there's a man on the field. He's got stripes. When he puts his arms like this up, he's indicating a touchdown. It's not a robbery in progress. And that got a good laugh on the set and everything else. That's morning TV. It's 8:00 in the morning. It's soccer moms watching it, so your material has to be different.
What setting was that? What were you doing that in?
On morning TV, Pix 11, morning show.
Okay.
So now when I go into a market and I headline, you do press, and I'll do all sorts of press. Because of my Daily Show background and stuff, I can do news talk and make it funny. I can do sports talk and make it funny. Do FM, which tends to be harder, rock, edgier. So in one morning, I'll do a strippers and beer show where they literally have strippers. So you got to be edgier and and then I'll go literally across the hall and do what they call soccer mom show, which is, kids, women driving, their dads driving their kids to work. So you've got to do softer stuff. That's also funny. And that's a really good thing. You asked, we were talking off air about doing the road. That's another good reason to do the road, because all performance informs all other performance. So when I do that little 5-minute set on a radio show, and you do hundreds and thousands of those as you do them as a headliner, that makes you a better performer on the stage. And when you headline a room and have to do 2 and 3 shows in a night and work through the check spot, nothing phases you in a room with a mic with a radio guy across from you. And then when you act, that makes you a better stand-up. And it's so important to have all of those experiences because it all feeds into you. I'm just going to sound pompous, but like not the artist and the brand and who you are is all informed and based on those building blocks.
And so when you were starting to make this transition from Leno, from investment banking to full-time comedy, how many jokes a day would you say were you writing?
Oh, I was probably writing at least 10 jokes a day in between here and there. This is working 18 to 20-hour days with very little sleep.
And how many jokes would Leno take?
It was on
Leno
and
was
off.
getting hundreds of jokes a day.
Yeah, he'd take a joke here, a joke there. I wasn't getting a ton on. I was getting a decent amount on, but the point was I was getting stuff on, but then that became less important. I wanted to do stand-up for me now.
Could you ever call him up and say, hey, let me do a monologue like other comics, a 5-minute monologue?
I wasn't ready for that. I wouldn't have asked. Yeah, and I would have put him on the spot. So I didn't ask him that. So what ended up happening was I now at the point where I'm a good couple of years into this like double life and I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. And I'm having a midlife crisis in my late 20s. And this is the part that completely freaked me out. I grew up always knowing what I wanted to do and what was expected of me. You go to school, you study hard, you get your A's, you get your good SATs, you go to a good college, you get your good LSAT, you go to a good law school, you work your ass off 18 hours a day, you become a junior associate, middle-level associate, partner, retire. I understood the game. And the game is very ABCD in my opinion, in that world. All of a sudden, here I am, and I always had it figured out. Like I was very clear. Now I had no idea what I should be, where I should go. I was scared shitless. I didn't have the guts to make the jump and quit Wall Street. I knew I wasn't feeling that I belonged on Wall Street. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I felt I was a wreck. I was looking for advice. I was turning to people. What should I do? What should I do? I was scared to death, and I had never been scared to death. To this day, in my opinion, for me, the worst feeling in the world is to feel like you don't belong or don't know where you belong. I felt like I had I was like two howitzers, loaded, ready to shoot in terms of talent, knowledge, ability, whatever it is, whether it's law, investment banking, kind of like pretty talented guy who can work his motherfucking ass off. And I had no idea where to shoot those howitzers. And
did Carol, your wife, say, hey, let's just hold out a few more years on your current track because then you might have enough to just, even if it's not your exact number.
My wife has never been driven by material things ever, 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 ever. She works in museums, a curator. She's really into the arts. But even that, she doesn't push that on anybody. She thinks she just base level, you can have a lot of happiness with not a lot of things. So I'm looking around. I literally, if you looked like somebody that could help me, I'd come up to you on the street and go, listen, here's my problem. I don't know what to do. I was talking to my college advisor, and then all of a sudden one day,
there might be something to the fact that if you don't know what to do, then you kind of do know what to do.
Well, here's the thing: I was a pussy, and I didn't want to make the decision. So I talked myself into believing that God made the decision for me. When I got a phone call one day that my father dropped dead of a heart attack, and I had to go home for the funeral. And when I went home, I'm the youngest of three. My brother works with autistic children, and my sister works as a nurse, and I'm the business law guy. And now it's just my mother running this furniture store, and she's in her 60s at the time. I don't know, late 60s. She goes, I think I'm going to eventually retire without Daddy. I don't think I can do this. Do you want to take over the business? And I'm like, yes. God made the decision for me. That's why my father died. I didn't want to make the decision. I knew I didn't want to make the decision, but I talked myself into the fact that I had to do this, which I didn't. She could have either closed it or found somebody else or sold it or continued to do it, which she ended up doing. But I just was like looking for a life raft, and I grabbed onto that and said, this makes sense. My wife and I are from here. We'll move back. We'll start a family. I'll have this business, and I'll fuck all that other shit.
And so this was almost like a bridge decision. Like it gave you a logical, rational decision to leave the investment banking world, whereas just saying, I'm going to leave this to hang out at like dirty dive bars and do open mics, that didn't feel like a logical decision.
No, I mean, look, how this is why there's a lot of writing that I don't like. He pursued his dream and he got it. No, it doesn't fucking work that way. You sit in your bed at night in your 2-bedroom $1 million apartment and you go, am I going to walk away from my Saab and fucking eating at Lattès every other night?
Still not impressed by the Saab.
And my Mercedes, I'm going to change it for the story. And go and sit in these shitholes for no money. And you said it earlier, you have to blow the house up and start from the foundation. This ain't the kind of thing where you go, oh, I'm going to dabble in it, and then I'll eventually get to the point in stand-up where I'm making $500,000 part-time. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You got to go fail and write and fail and network and get yourself into this club and get on TV. Like, it's a whole, am I going to do that? You don't sit there and say to somebody, yeah, it was an easy decision. I was literally shitting my pants to the point where I couldn't make the decision. And I quote, I'm doing air quotes here, God make the decision when my father died. And it was horseshit. And I talked myself into a horseshit rationale. At the time, I didn't know I was, but I did.
But it's the sort of decision you could say to your boss at the bank, hey, my dad died, his family, there's the family business, I got to take over it. And he can always say to you, I totally understand. You're welcome back.
Leave of absence. That's exactly that's exactly what I did. So we rented out my apartment, and my wife moved up there. We still weren't married yet. And by the way, when I told my wife that I finally had to tell her that I was doing the secret double life, she goes, "Oh, thank God." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Well, I thought you were cheating on me." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Well, because you were supposed to be at work all night. You're coming home. Your clothes reeked of beer and cigarette smoke. You had blood stains. You had women's phone numbers, which were just other comics with rooms that I could work." So she put a completely different puzzle together, which was
kudos
crazy.
to her though for not confronting with you,
No, I
you
know.
instantly. Why didn't she confront you instantly?
Because she's a wasp and they don't confront; they just keep it inside. I really do believe that. But Italians, it all just comes pouring out of you. But I just think she's a very trusting person, and we were together a long time at that point, and just really loved me and didn't care what I did. So, and still doesn't. So I moved to Rhode Island, and I think my mother's a very demanding person. She's very headstrong, very entrepreneurial. It's her way, the highway. She was always a central figure in the family, and I think she's going to give this business up, and I'm going to run it. Bullshit. She turned me back into a 15-year-old whose job was to run errands for her. And I'm trying to put in a computer system, and she won't let me do it. And she doesn't use filing cabinets. She puts all of her bills and files in styrofoam coolers because they're easier to carry around. And I joked one day, I said, yeah, it looks like when you get audited, it looks like you're going on a picnic. And she was like, that's not funny. I'm like, all right, whatever. So we were oil and water, I was doing $1 billion merger deals. My job there was like, go get me a cup of coffee, move the chair. She wasn't going to retire because you're always a child in your parents' eyes. Yeah. Always. You never get the respect that you should get. And I understand that. I mean, I have a kid. I get it. She locked the customer in the... What's that?
You're never going to respect your kids.
No, he's an idiot. No. She locked the customer in the store one day. She can't hear. She has bad hearing, and she's very flighty and very creative. She had to go to the bank before 3 o'clock to make a deposit. I go to the door, and the door's locked, and there's a woman in the store. I go, what are you doing? She goes, I haven't been able to get out. Your mother locked me in the store. I said, how long you been here? She goes, 4 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
I go, what have you been doing? She goes, well, I browsed a lot. She goes, I took a nap. I got tired. I took a nap on that sofa. She goes, is your name Paul? I go, yeah. She goes, well, the phone rang and I took messages. She took messages for us. And I'm yelling at my mother afterwards. I go, Ma, you can't do that. You can't she goes, I don't know what you're yelling at me for. The woman, that nap she took on the sofa, she liked the sofa and she's going to buy a sofa. She goes, I made a sale. I wasn't even in the store. So this became like funny to bad to sad to like, oh shit. So now I'm back and I'm more fucked than I was before I went up there because Wall Street ain't the answer. Comedy ain't the answer, and the family business ain't the answer. So I'm more in a hole, and I'm more scared, and I'm more confused, and I don't know where I belong.
But you have, at this point, tiny but significant pedigree. It's not like, let's say you wanted to start a hedge fund. You could say, oh, I worked at Goldman Sachs, and I went to Harvard, and that's your pedigree. Now you want to submit packets to another show. Hey, I've gotten a billion jokes on Jay Leno,
right?
The top show in the world at the time for comedy.
Yeah, but I didn't know that at the time. So you're right, but in hindsight, right? And I'm freaking out. I'm just like, shit. But I couldn't stay up there because I was going to kill her or kill myself or whatever. And I just decided, fuck it, I'm going to go. I'm going to do it. So I moved back. I sold
Your
my-
wife's a saint at this point.
Yeah. Not only that, I'm such a scumbag. I had her move to Boston because Boston's a good town for museums. It's also a good comedy town when you're starting out. So I had an apartment here. I got a smaller apartment. She got an apartment in Boston. So I'd spend 3 or 4 days in New York. Then I'd go to Boston and spend 3 or 4 days with her so I could work open mic nights up there.
I mean, at that time, you had, in Boston, you had Louis C.K., Pete Holmes, Gary Goldman.
yeah.
Who else was there? A lot of comics were there.
Yeah, and then guys like Tom Cotter, some other guys, and then guys that stayed up there like Steve Sweeney and some of the big Don Gavin, some of the big names up there. So I sold my apartment. I unraveled my life. I sold everything except my Saab, and because I needed a car to get around. I sold my suits. I stole my stereo. I kept my TV. I kept one of my TVs, a small one, and I moved to a rooming house in New Rochelle. For $327 a month. And I lived with 2 ex-cons, 2 recovering addicts, and I lived right below. We each had an 8x10 room with a hot pot on the floor and a little bureau and a single bed, and we shared the kitchen and the bathroom. And I lived right below a 300-pound phone sex operator who sold Herbalife diet products door to door. And I could hear all
material.
Yeah, exactly. And I started to live the life of a comic. And I'd go to hell gigs and shit gigs, and then one of the guys was an alcoholic, and he'd slap around this guy that he didn't like. So I'd hear this guy like get beating the shit out of the guy outside my door, and then I had tried to break them up, and then I'm hearing that whole, and like I know what she looks like. It's theater of the mind, and she's just like if right. So I know like when she's pissing on a guy's face, it ain't a 105-pound chick with fucking blonde hair. It's a 312-pound woman, literally. She's like, yo, you can come up and you could, if you want to listen in on my calls while I do them. I'm like, nah, I'm good. So I would go out and walk around the neighborhood while she made her calls, like in freezing cold weather. But I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And I'm away from my girlfriend and I'm doing it. Well, it sucked. The gigs sucked. The bar gigs you get $50 for out in Connecticut sucked. I'm getting stiffed on money. I did a 5-show weekend up at a place called Joker's Wild in New Haven. And you have to understand now, the people who had control of my life, which were club owners and low-level agents, these are people that we would not have allowed to Xerox documents on Wall Street. Maybe get us lunch. Literally, I'm not kidding. Like they would never have gotten a job even doing like the most menial thing. Now they controlled my life. And this is the biggest problem I had at that point was like, how do I keep my mouth shut? Because I'd go home and I'd rant to my girlfriend, like, what the fuck? You don't do things that way. She goes, you're in a completely different, because goes back to the ABCD that I was saying, like, you do things a certain way, especially when you're doing merger deals. It's like, you get it done, man. You don't fuck around like, right. So anyway, it's February. I go to Joker's Wild. I'm the opening act. I'm opening for Elaine Boozler. Somebody warned me that the owner was an asshole. I walk in. And I'm sitting, the guy's sitting at the bar, and he goes, who are you? I go, I'm the opening act. He goes, oh, you're Paul? He goes, yeah. He goes, all right. You want a shot? I go, no. He goes, you want to do some blow? I go, no. He goes, what are you, a pussy? I go, what are we in high school? I go, no, I want to just do the work right now. He goes, all right. I go, I need to see John. He goes, I'm John. He goes, the green room's over there. I go in the showroom, and everybody's sitting in their coats. I'm thinking, all right, well, the show hasn't started. I could see my breath in the room. He wasn't paying his heating bill. We did 5 shows with no heat in February in Connecticut with people sitting in their coats. I get off stage at the end of the 5th show. I go to the bouncer, whatever, like, I need to get my check. John left. He didn't leave you a check. What? Yeah, he left. He didn't leave. He stiffed me. He fucking stiffed me. I was doing, now you have to understand the internal monologue is, I was doing fucking merger deals on Wall Street with T. Boone Pickens, and this drug addict scumbag just stiffed me on 200. What am I doing? What have I done? I go home, I'm ranting. That Saturday, my wife and I throw a party in Boston. I leave the party early because he says, come down and I'll pay you. I go down. I had to drive 2.5 hours. He did it again. He stiffed me again. So now I'm calling him, like, I'm just going to call this guy to, call me back. Messages, you're a fucking, finally he picks up the phone one day. He goes, hey, you really think you're going to get your money? He goes, if it's between you and the phone company, you lose. You and the electric company, you lose. Go fuck yourself. And he hangs up on me. That was a real low point because now I'm like, I'm in it, and I know I'm in it. Like,
So you couldn't say to yourself, you know what, this is not worth it, because there was something visceral about stand up and comedy
and also
and performance.
And I'm just, I don't want to sound cliche, but yeah, you just don't give up. I think half of it in life, and I really believe, is just like you just keep taking it in the solar plexus, and then eventually you get through where you want to get through, because it's not supposed to be easy. Because
Right.
it's
It's
really
hard.
It's hard, and I know this is cliche, and I think the cliche is very apt. If it were easy, everybody would fucking do it, and everybody be Jay Leno and have a lot of money and 100 and 200 car, 200, great cars. But I just was like, I wasn't ready. But it's not good. It's not good, and I'm really miserable. And then I wake up one morning, and I look out, and I know this won't upset you, but it upset me. And my Saab was under 4 feet of water because we live right by the Long Island Sound, and it had flooded over. And I would work in the car. You'd drive in the car at night, and then you'd eat at night driving back. And I'd like a Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I'm looking, and it was literally like white caps inside the car. The water was up to the steering wheel, like the where the horn is, the middle of the steering. It was up to the dashboard. And
Well, maybe this is a good thing. This is the final vestiges of your banking life underwater.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He would have like you would have been great because you would have given me perspective. I wish I had known you at the time. So I'm looking, and it's February. It's like 10 degrees out. The water's probably 4 degrees. I start putting on my little Hanes sweatpants, thinking I'm just going to wade in and start the car up. It's literally like up to my chest. So I call a tow truck company. I'm like, he goes, you're going to need a professional diver. I go, what? He goes, I can't let my guys go in that water. You got to hook under the car. And I'm like, look, man, when you have car trouble, you do not want to hear the words professional diver. You know, you got a big problem. So I had to.
That's kind of a joke right there. Have you used that?
Maybe I might, yeah. And I had to sit. He goes, the only thing you do is wait for the water to recede, and then we can send somebody out. And I had to sit there for like 4 hours. And all I could do was I saw that I had eaten a Kentucky Fried Chicken the night before, and the bag was just floating at the top, on top of the water. And I'm like, this is fucking bad. I take the car out. I get it cleaned out. It's compromised because it's all salt water, right? Maybe a week later, I get a letter, and I'm getting audited by the IRS. This is like solar plexus. You just keep getting fucking punched in the head. You want to do this? And I do believe that this happens for a reason. This was something. It's God, it's life testing me. How badly do you want it? Like, how really badly do you want it? Because we're going to make it really bad. And if you want it bad enough and you're good enough, you'll break through and some great stuff will happen to you. But you don't get to have the great stuff until you go through this pain. I mean, that's how I look at it. Other people might disagree or make it whatever. But so I go to the audit. Now I'm completely like, I'm so depressed. I'd thrown out what I had. Oh, the thing you said about your friends making money. Now I'm running a race that I'm never going to win because I'm going to visit my friends from Wall Street who just got a second Mercedes, who just took a $12,000 ski trip, fucking helicopter thing. My buddy, look at you laughing, you know exactly. Buys a mini mansion, my buddy Dan. Still my good friend, just had lunch with him today. Great guy, worked with him at Credit Suisse. Nicest guy in the world. I go in his house, it's a Sunday, and all I do is I walk in and first of all, I pull up to the house and my stomach is in knots. It's just beautiful house. I'm living in a 8x10 room with a fucking hot pot below a phone sex operator. My car's been flooded out. I have an IRS letter sitting on my bureau. Most of my money is kaput. And I'm like, I said to Carol, my wife, I'm like, I don't want to go in. She goes, well, you got to go in. I can't. So I go in and I'm standing in the foyer and I'm looking around and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I go into the bathroom. I close the door. I put the toilet seat down. I sit down. I put my head in my hands and I just go like this. I can't, I got to go back. I got to go back. I can't do this. I got to go back. I could have had this. I could have had this. What have I done? If I go back now, I can still have it. It's not too late. I got to go back. Are you okay? Carol, what? Are you okay? I sat there for 25 minutes. I didn't even know it. She goes, you got to get out of the bathroom. People need to use the bathroom. Are you getting sick? I go, yeah, my stomach. I just walked out. I go, I got to go. I'm just going to tell him. I'm going to lie and tell him I'm sick. I got to go. And I left. And I was running a race I was never going to win. So that feeling that I had when I was still on Wall Street and I started to feel like, can I do this? Should I do it? Now it's just worse. I'm a mess. I just tried fucking the family business. I just tried Wall Street. And now I just tried this. Where do I shoot my howitzers, man? Like, what the fuck? Nothing is right. How did this happen to me? 5 years ago, I had it all figured out. I was like, straight on, motherfucker. You tell me to jump off the building, I tell you, say, what time? And I'll jump off the building better than anybody. Now I'm like a pile of goo.
At this point, too, you were still going up, probably
still
on
going
stage quite a bit.
Still going up. You know, I give myself credit. Like I wouldn't.
How many times
quit.
a week or month?
I'm getting up now like a good 3-4 times a week. I think I had passed maybe at one of the big clubs, but that just meant like I got to go on at 3:00 in the morning on a Tuesday. But still, it was a badge of honor and it meant something. But still just shit gigs. But it was the controlling aspect of people who I had no respect for that was killing me more than anything. Not because I was better than them, but because they were just either douchebags or assholes for the most part. For the most part. Some of them were good people at that level. So I go to the IRS audit, and the guy, this is the only time that you have to legally explain your life and every aspect to it to a total stranger. It's not your priest, he's not your rabbi, it's the law. You got to answer this guy's questions. And he has a guide, which is your tax return, which is your entire life spelled out for him. So you have to answer these questions. So it's like, he goes, I've been looking at your file. I can't figure something out. I go, what? He goes, what'd you do with all the money? I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, like for a few years, you had like very, very significant income. In the last couple of years, like you're at a loss. I go, what? I'm like, well, I was a lawyer and investment banker. I literally did it like this sheep. I was a lawyer and investment banker, and I quit to be a comedian. Pregnant pause. He's like, yeah, right. What'd you do with the money? I go, no, I'm serious. I go, I was, and then he said to me, who in their right mind would do that? And he became the personification of all the doubts in my head. He said everything to me that I was saying to myself. What have I done? Don't you miss it? You think you can get it back if you want? And I understood him because he was me up until a few years ago, because that's what society does. He was probably an accounting major, solid guy, got a job at the IRS, benefits, 30 years. Government ain't going anywhere. I don't disrespect that. He was me. He was 99% of us out there. This is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to go do this crazy thing where there's no security, there's no net, there's no nothing, just you and the belief in you that you can do it and this thing that artistically hits you. You're not supposed to do that. I had to bring my lawyer in.
And 99% of people don't do it.
Don't do it. And I don't judge them if they don't. Like,
right.
So I was first mad at the guy. Then I was like, I understood. Like, man, it was all logical questions. But I didn't need to hear it at that point. I needed to hear, I was just a mess. And I had to bring my lawyer in to testify on my behalf that I wasn't lying. And my accountant had to come in. And then I remember one day I kind of snapped. I go, look at my fast food receipts. I had like $2,300 of fast food receipts. If I worked on Wall Street, would I be eating $2,300 worth of fast food? I go, look at the time on the receipts. 1:00 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, Connecticut, New Jersey. I go on a gig, I eat, I can't eat before the gig. I get in the car, I stop at a fast food place and I eat on the way home. You think I'm fucking, like, that was like my car. I'm driving my car, but all the connections are compromised. Electrical connections. So, sometimes you drive at night, somebody flashes you like, meaning like, hey, there's a cop, watch out, and you flash back like, thank you. Well, my lights were just independently, randomly flashing on their own because of the connection. And people thought I was like flashing them about cops, so they'd flash back. So now the lights were a reminder of how shitty my car. The lights were like Morse code to me going, look at how fucked up your life is. What have you done? Look at your car. You're getting audited. Your girlfriend's 200 miles away. You can't get your friend Dan's house. You're never going to get that. And so I went to talk to my college advisor, who was the coolest man on the face of the planet, who always wanted me to do this but would never tell me to do it. And he goes, look, you need to calm down. He goes, look, it's like this. He goes, you went for a swim across the ocean and you left the shore and you're at the point in the horizon where you can't see the shore you came from and you can't see the shore you're going to. But trust, if you keep going in that direction, you'll get to that shore. I go, I can't. I'm too afraid. And
I mean, that's good advice that he gave you. But at that moment, your answer is the only answer, really. Because no one could really say, okay, good, I'm going to wait. And maybe drown, but I'm going to wait.
Exactly. And I was still a pussy because I was still looking for someone to tell me what to do. And I'm an adult man. I think we're conditioned not to do something like this. The society conditions us away to not pursue something that's really risky like this. And by the way, this doesn't apply to the arts. This applies to somebody that wants to invest all their money in bobby pins. You know what I mean? People take risks in lots of different ways. People take risks in relationship. It's been a great life lesson for me that I'll pass on to my son and anybody else who wants it, about just, risk in general and believing in yourself. And if you're in a wrong place, getting yourself out of it and get yourself into the right place. So I'm sitting with it. My phone rings one day and it's my buddy Dan, and he had moved to another investment bank. And he was starting up a department. And he goes, what are you doing? I go, well, I'm doing the stand-up and stuff. He goes, well, I need some help, but I need people that I trust and know. You want to make some quick money? He goes, what do you mean? I just need you to help me kind of get this off the ground. And like a consultant thing, like 6 months, like $75,000, which, helped because my co-op forced me to sell. They wouldn't let me sublet for more than a year, so I had to sell it. I sold it back to the bank. So I basically just wiped my mortgage out, and any money I had saved was now gone. And I didn't want to take another job because Leno told me, just live as frugally as you can so that you can just do stand-up. Because if you start spending money on stuff, you got to pay for it. That means you got to get a day job, then you're not doing your act and blah, blah, blah. And which is what I did. That's why I moved to the shithole rooming house and I sold everything and I ate. I wasn't going out to Lattes anymore, any of those places. Well, I'm like, I don't know. He goes, well, just come in. I go out. I buy a suit. I'm standing on the train station in New Rochelle. Blue suit, white shirt, red tie. I look to my left, I look to my right. There's 40 other guys like me. I'm about to get on the train to go for an interview, and I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. It was just, I was like walking around in a daze, and I didn't belong anywhere. And I was so depressed that I was so lost. You just think, fuck it, man, I'll just walk in front of the train. It'd be easier. Because the pain was so much. Like, it was so much pain of, like, not knowing and just being so afraid all the time. Not to mention the fact that my wife never said anything, but, like, I got to marry this chick at some point. You know what I mean? Like, it's like...
Maybe she's kind of waiting for you to figure it out. She was. I don't know what's going on with this guy. He could be a little crazy now.
Yeah. So I go back in and I interview. And around the time this happened, I got to do a little set of stand-up, like, for TV, they do like 4 comics, cable TV shows, like a syndicated thing. And I did it a couple of months before.
How'd you get that gig? Like a manager hooked you up? Or
through one of the clubs that I had sort of been doing late night spots at. They were looking for new people. Mm-hmm. And the guy gave my name and they saw my thing. I was like, yeah. So I did it. And then like they said, we'll let you know when it's going to air. It's a pre-taped thing. So I go into the interview, not really interview, I mean with my friend, and I have to interview some other people, and I go back and I have another interview, and I have another interview, and they're going well, and I don't know why they're going well. And I get a job offer. I get the offer. And it's for more money than he even said, and a better title than I had when I left Wall. I don't know how I got a better title. I have 2 weeks to decide to take the offer, and I can't decide. I can't fucking decide. You ask me at 12:01, I'm taking the offer. You ask me at 12:02, fuck that, I'm sticking with comedy. 12:03, I'm taking the offer. I was a mess. I was a mess. 8 Ways to Sunday. And it's the day I got to make the call. And I literally dialed the number and I hang up the phone. Couldn't get through the number. I dial again. I couldn't get through the number. I call my girlfriend, Carol. She's in Boston. I go, I don't know what to do. What do I do? I don't know what to do. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know what I want to do. If I fucking knew what I wanted to do, that's like asking me when I tell you, help me find my phone. Where'd you leave your phone? If I knew that kind of thing, I'm losing my mind. I hang up, I call, and I accept the offer. And I hang the phone up and I start crying like a baby. And it wasn't out of like relief.
But it's one of those things where you did always know what you wanted to do. You wanted to be a stand-up, but you wanted to make $500,000 a year doing it. So that you wouldn't have that worry.
Well, I always say it's a lot harder to have money and then not have it. And you would know this, given your background, than to never have had it.
Right.
Because if I didn't have a taste of it, and it wasn't that I missed the money so much. I don't want to sound like I just wanted a big house. It was just the security of, I mean, look, I'm talking about a $70,000 a year accounting job. The IRS would have been okay with me at that point versus $50 here, getting stiffed on this, getting people fucking heckling you, living in a shithole. I mean, it was really like, that's what it was like. And so it wasn't like, oh man, I want this cigarette boat, like in the worst way possible. That, I just wanted to have some semblance of security and sanity in my life. And I just start crying. I'm crying. I call my girlfriend. I'm like, I go, she goes, are you happy? Is that why you're crying? I go, no. I go, I just took a job and my gut, I know I don't belong there. I don't know where I belong. I'm completely fucked up. I've never been like this. I'm like a shell of myself. I'm like a whole other person. I don't know who I am. I don't recognize myself. What am I going to do? I kept saying, how did I get like this? How did I get like this? Moved her back, recreated my life. New 2-bedroom apartment, all new suits, big ass TV, stereo, swore off comedy. I'm not going to touch it. I ain't even going to watch it.
You weren't going up on stage at all?
I wasn't going. Not only was I not going on stage, I was not doing one of the things I love to do, which was to watch stand-up comedy on TV. I couldn't watch it. I wasn't even watching comedy movies for a while.
At this point, though, in comedy, do you feel like you had built up the skill sets and you were now kind of like a good club comic? And
I think I was a solid club comic, but there was nothing that said this guy's going to be a big star maybe someday, or has the potential to be a big star, make a ton of money. And there certainly nothing said that I was going to win Emmy and Peabody Awards or do any of that stuff or work on some of these shows that I worked on, some really cool stuff. I was solid. You'd see me and you'd see 4 other guys and you'd remember a little of me and you remember them. But I wasn't, but I was getting better, and I was getting better than a lot of people that I started with. So I was separating myself from the pack, but there's still, as you know, a lot of stand-ups, I wasn't like walking on the scene like Dave Chappelle and just blowing shit up at 16, or 17 or 18. So, but there was something there, but that wasn't enough for me. There was not enough indicator there to make me feel like, yeah, this is whatever. I just was too afraid. It was just too scary. It was just too scary. It was just, I just couldn't rationally walk away. So I convinced myself I could get back in, and I got back in, and I swore off comedy, and I wouldn't go into a club. I literally wouldn't watch comedy movies. Miserable, not happy. I don't like the guy I'm working for. It's not my friend. It turns out to be somebody else, and he's kind of not a guy, nice guy, manipulative, and not someone to trust. And so now we're in Phoenix, and we're selling an HMO, Pinnacle West, like an $800 million deal. And I'm like the lead guy for our firm and stuff, and doing due diligence. And then one day there's a big meeting with a bunch of lawyers and bankers, and the CEO comes in, this guy with like 60 with gray hair or whatever. And he's like, did I see you on TV last night in front of everybody? I'm like, no. He goes, yeah, you were on TV. Like you were saying some things about your life. No, I wasn't being coy. They aired the thing I shot. They didn't tell me the air date, and I forgot about it. So I'm like, no, he goes, yeah, you were like in front of there was like a curtain and I think you were telling jokes. I'm like, oh, fuck. So because I had never told anybody about that life, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I was a porn star, but now I'm not a porn star anymore, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, that was me. Now I figure I'm dead, I'm not going to be fired on the spot, but like by the end of the week, I won't have a job. And long pause, like, and there's like a dozen people in the room, all high-level bankers, lawyers, and he goes, it was great. He goes, hey, everybody, my investment banker's a comedian. Isn't that awesome? He calls Phyllis, come in, calls his assistant. Isn't there a comedy club in town? Why don't we get a couple of tables with everybody come out? You could do something at the club tonight. I'm like, no, I'm good. I found out later, I became his favorite he didn't like the managing director, who was the guy that I didn't like. He liked me. And he said, because it humanized me that I did this other thing. I wasn't just a guy crunching numbers to make a lot of money to go buy a boat or whatever. I think that's a
key element, by the way, which is that life shouldn't be just one thing anyway.
Right.
Like, it should be a set of multiple skills, because the combination of them brings success. Like,
right.
You having business skills probably later on helped you in comedy.
Yes.
You having comedy skills got you this recognition from this guy and elevated you perhaps even in the eyes of your peers, because they saw how this guy was treating you.
Yeah, and that last thing you said is a really good point. I think ultimately what I needed validation from Wall Street that it was okay. Mm-hmm. And not just my 2 or 3 friends on Wall Street. Because I still, up to that point, felt so silly, stupid, whatever the word is, childish, that I was doing this comedy thing, You're an investment banker on Wall Street, for God's sake. You work on Park Avenue. You don't do that. And then I remember him saying, you know what, now you have a, he said, good for you. He goes, if you think about doing that full time, and I just laughed. He goes, well, if you did, he goes, then you'll have a career and not just a job, he said to me. This is the CEO of a major HMO who makes his money off of that and, Wall Street. And I just was like, holy shit.
And he had probably always, my guess is, he had this secret admiration of someone who took the choice of going out there and getting on stage. In the very beginning, 99% of the battle is just overcoming the fear of getting on stage.
Right.
And so he probably had, like many, many, many others,
he
probably had that fear.
He alluded to, I think writing was his thing. And he said, I started a book, and then I got married, and the kid, and then the 2 kids.
So he had to keep doing. He had to keep the shackles on.
Yeah, exactly. Shackles is a great word. And when I talk about this in my act, and now we formulated this into an idea for a show, I get people who come up to me and say, did you really do that? And I go, why? I go, well, I'm a dentist. I'm 38. I hate being a dentist. I never really wanted to be a dentist. My parents really because my brother's a dentist. He goes, but I'm a really good painter, and I really, artist. And I go, well, why don't you scale your life down and go for it? And you could see his eyes. I could see me and him when I was lost. Or a kid came up to me recently. I'm an engineering major. I hate it. He goes, I go, what do you want to do? He goes, well, I'm a really good bass player and I want to write music. I go, do it. I go, you can always go back. College isn't all that's cracked up to be anyway. I go, you got a lot of options. You seem like smart. Same thing. Look in his eyes. Like, I just told him to put his fucking dick in a vice. He was just like, holy shit. But you can't.
But you know what though? You can't convince them, but you could plant seeds.
You
and
plant
some seeds will
and
grow.
I think also just live by example, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying I'm whatever, but like I think that they can see, okay, well this guy came through the car wash on the other end, and his car's not scratched, right? Like it's working out for this guy. He's done a lot of interesting, significant stuff, and blah blah blah. And I needed that affirmation from the guy. That guy in Phoenix was pivotal for me, because at that point, I don't know, I wish I were a stronger person, I wish I didn't need that emotional gold star.
But maybe everyone is like
guys.
that. Like maybe if you had too much courage, it wouldn't have been good. You would have been like, oh, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. Right. And then you just never would have developed the skills.
Right. And that's a good point. But I also feel like I wish I was stronger at the time. I'm much better with it now, where I just say, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it. I don't know why I needed those people to say it was okay.
And then once that happened, like, what was then the leap to, because it wasn't that far from then when suddenly you were a contributor and a writer on The Daily Show.
Yeah. Well, what happened was then I had to scale my life down again. So we moved again because the apartment we were in was going to suck up my money. I'd only lasted like barely a year at that job. And we moved to a smaller place. We got married, and I just started it again, living the life of a comic now with some credits. And now I'm getting into places and stuff starts happening. And then somebody recognized me, like my stuff from stand-up. And one of the, Liz Winstead, who's created The Daily Show, and she said, "You want to submit?" I did, and I got hired. And then the next thing I know,
What did you submit, like sketches or jokes? Or?
No, it was jokes, but it was jokes off of headlines, news story jokes.
And again, a joke being just like, here's the headline and then a punchline.
Yeah, sometimes every show's different. So, every show writes their own submission packet, like what the Late Show Stephen Colbert has, and like the Daily Show had is like they want you to write like pick 5 headlines from the news this week, write 2 or 3 jokes to those with set up just exactly how you'd want the host to say it. And then come up with a couple of correspondent chats at the desk, and maybe like a couple of field pieces ideas. So they just wanted to see if you because they would plug us into different things, right? We'd always write the monologue desk stuff for John, but then you might, you're done with that? Okay, go sit with the producer so-and-so because Steve Carell's going to do a piece on thing. We need to punch it up. So, you need to be a utility player, right? So then that started to happen. And then I calmed down and I wasn't hyperventilating so much.
Were they paying more for that than, let's say, Jay Leno, $50 a joke?
Oh, yeah. And then I was like getting a real salary. But I wasn't making my Wall Street money. Mm-hmm. And it was still that thing. There still was that thing. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But your understanding of the world of business, which is really in the context of the whole world economy and politics and everything, that probably really helped you with your Daily Show comedy.
Yeah, listen, writing as a lawyer helped me as a comic because it's all about precise language, and that's exactly what you have to do as a lawyer. I mean, we joked about being long-winded, but legal documents, every word in a legal document is there for a reason. If it's long-winded, it's because that particular issue is a complicated issue that needs to be explained clearly. So that helped me. The business stuff definitely helped me. Just marketing, even now what I do and what we have in place when I market myself to go into a market. I mean, a lot of the clubs call me a media whore because I'm really good at press and I hang on to those relationships and then I follow up because I give that show something. I'm coming in. Some comics don't want to do their material, whatever. I'll come in. I'll like write stuff specific to that show and they love it, So I understand that, as great as you can be on stage, you got to put asses in the seats. You got to sell soap. So I get that.
So you were doing Daily Show, and I imagine these were all different skills, like field pieces, reporter pieces, monologue jokes. You're also going on the road. You're also doing stand up in the city.
Like I'm in this film Chuck with Liev Schreiber. So I take acting. I work as an actor because it's a different discipline.
How'd you get into the acting?
I just want to act, and I like the idea of me acting. And
so you had a manager or an agent at that point that got you.
Yeah, and you just start
audition?
looking. Yeah, no, you first just take classes. I took classes for quite a while because acting is different than stand up. If you're doing stand up, right, you have to bifurcate your mind. So you're doing your material, but you're also listening to the reaction to your material and deciding, am I going to stick with this line of jokes about water? Well, they're not really digging it. Maybe I should go to here. Now, some comics will stick with it and just bomb with that, and God bless them. And I might do that some nights. But you got to really be like listening and aware, or something happens over here, or somebody drops a drink. But you're still doing your act in a way that you're really connected to the material. You can't do that as an actor. I have to be in complete sync with you, in character. I can't be listening. I can't be thinking to myself, oh, he just put his hand in his pocket. I can't be, oh, I just turned my neck and I heard a crick in I got to be like in the scene with you. I can't be out here. And the trap that some stand-ups fall into is they think because they're good performers as a stand-up, they're good actors, and they're not. So I really worked hard at that, and I think I'm pretty good. And, I've been getting parts. So again, I also don't want to just do stand-up because I know I would get bored just doing the one thing. So and I also go on these shows as a commentator on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, talking about the world because of my background with The Daily Show. I have skill sets and again, I write and prepare stuff day of for whatever I have to do. And I think that makes me a better stand-up and makes me a better actor. And I think I'm on a set now on TV because I worked around TV. It's like I'm in my living room. The lights don't bother me. All the people around me don't bother. I'm just like hanging out. I'm not fazed by any of it.
And then part of the time is too, you would do warm up comedy for the Daily Show and the Colbert Show later, or more recently. And what's the difference doing, like, what's warm up comedy? So I'm getting ready to watch Colbert and the Colbert Show. It's a live audience. What's the warm up comic do?
You can't watch that show like you're watching TV at home. Otherwise, we're going to get canceled. And by that, I mean, ask yourself how much you really laugh out loud when you watch TV at home. Like, laugh out loud. Oh, my fucking God. That's
Probably zero.
That's what
usually I smile when it's funny.
Exactly. That's what I do. And and so just picture 500 people doing this. This is Les Moonves, so we canceled the show because nobody's watching. Why is anybody watching? Because nobody's laughing in the studio. What do you mean? People are sheep. That's why they have laugh tracks. If they laugh, then people subconsciously and consciously go, that must be funny, so I should laugh. It happens in a club. You could feel it. It's the most fascinating thing. That's the thing I love about stand-up is the psychology of it. You know, I say you need a couple of people, right? You ever see in the Western, they get a little of that, shrub or whatever, like a little, like, I don't know, like straw, and then they rub two sticks together, and they get the straw, and then suddenly cut to the next scene, it's a big fire with a pig roasting over it. Well, that little straw is like two people. You get them, and it's two more. And then suddenly, the other people in the room are conditioned like, oh, this must be funny because they're laughing. I should probably be laughing. I don't think they consciously say that.
So do you think in stand-up, like, let's say some people are laughing and some people aren't, do you then focus on the ones who are laughing to get them to laugh more, or do you kind of move your attention to the audience that's not laughing?
I probably won't do either. I'll just, it just depends. Like if there's really nobody else laughing, I'll just go into I might start talking to them, or I might address the fact that they're not laughing and just be honest about it. Cause I like being honest in the moment up there. But if it's like a decent amount laughing, then I'll let it play out and trust that the rest of them will get it. And if they don't, that's okay too. I still know that I'm doing a good show, and that's the confidence of just, I think, doing it for a while.
How many years into it did you have that confidence?
Maybe 8 or 9, I guess. I mean, it's a while. You know,
It's brutal.
Yeah, because you got to just stand there, and again, it's like the stuff off stage. Just take it. You got to just take it. So you have to. An audience may not be IQ smart, but they're emotionally brilliant. My father, blue collar guy, high school educated, he could sniff you out a mile away if you were bullshitting him. Now, he can't match up intellectually with a guy from Harvard, but they fucking know, man. That audience knows if you're bullshitting them, if you're afraid, if you're not sure of yourself, if you have shit material, they know. Two examples. One is I was in outside of Chicago working in an all-black club. The MC was a house MC. He was supposed to do 10 to 12 up front and 2 or 3 in the middle. He was doing 5 up front with all shit hack material. Like, oh, you must be from Onkeyville, you know, like when they do the local town and everybody laughs. Just like really like shit material. But he was killing. Then the middle act would go up and he'd eat it because they'll go, oh, shit, that's their laugh. They're into it, but they're just, good mother. They'll do that. So this kid thought they were criticizing his jokes. So he'd be like, I didn't mean anything by it. Like, he'd go like that, right? They were devouring him because if you let them, they will fucking devour you. And I don't know why, and it breaks my heart about human nature, but trust me, you put 100 people in the room, 90 of them will just, something internally, subconsciously will be like, this guy's bleeding in the water and we're going to fucking go for him. Something happened here. I'll tell you in a minute, this club. So I pull the MC aside. I go, look, you got to do your time the right way. Because, oh man, yeah, sorry. Goes up, he does it again next show. I go, look, this is the second time I'm telling you. You got to do 10 to 12 up front. I know exactly what you're doing. You're using this poor, scared fucking kid in the middle to warm the crowd up for you, and then you're doing 10 to 12 before you bring me up. Now, I don't give a shit. My sets were going fine, but it wasn't fair to that fucking kid in the middle. Does it again. So I go get my coat at the end of the show, my bag. I go, you got a problem. I said to the MC, he goes, why? I go, you're going to have to headline the rest of the weekend. He goes, why? I go, because I'm getting on a fucking plane. I'm going home. He goes, why? I go, because you're a fucking asshole and you're a fucking hack. And you think that this is your room because you're a house MC, and you're not. You know what you are? You're a fucking MC. Not judging you. That's what the marketplace says you are right now. If you were a feature, you'd be featuring. And you're not a fucking headliner. And you don't want to listen to me. This weekend, it's my show. It's not the owner's show. It's not the audience's show. It's not your show. It's my fucking show. My name's out there. My ass is up there. It's my way or the highway. I'm going home. You go upstairs, go to the office and tell the owner you have to headline and see how the fucking club does. Clean his act up, and he did what he was supposed to do. It happened here one night.
What happened here? So by the way, we're doing this podcast at Stand Up New York where both Paul and I perform, and I've been the bad MC.
No.
Not for you.
No.
But I have at times.
No. Listen, I think what you do is really, and you're you. What's great about you is you're you already. Like, I think usually when you start out, you're just not really who you are because you're not comfortable. Like, so you'll do like surface jokes. By that, I mean jokes about pens that don't work or being on the subway, stuff that everybody can relate to. But you're already you on stage, which I think is great because there's only you. You're really smart. You're really interesting. You're a great conversationalist. So when I first saw you, I was like, you could tell that you're newer in terms of the performance. But like, I remember saying to somebody, this guy, there's something interesting and unique and quirky about him. And so that's not easy to do.
No, well, thank you.
And funny. And a lot of the jokes are funny. So anyway, we're here, and I was talking to a couple in the back, and there's a great club, by the way. I don't want people to think whatever. So, and I was just married couple, standard stuff, because the crowd felt a little tight. So I was like, before I go into material, because I was trying some new jokes, I wanted to kind of get them a little bit more. And so I say to the fucking guy, the guy's answering all the questions. I don't know why. He's just answering all the questions. And then I said, how long have you been married? And the woman blurts out, 25 years, just like that. Even you smiled. So it was funny. I mean, the crowd laughed, And I go, oh, that was funny that you said that way. And then another woman, 30-ish to my right, goes, what, a woman can't speak in public? I go, what? You go, like, only a man can speak? Now, it was so crazy and disconnected from what was happening that I thought she was just busting my balls and being funny. And I was like, right. And I looked at her and she wasn't laughing. And I go, are you serious? She goes, well, you said, why was it a problem with the woman? So and now the whole crowd's like, oh, like, come on, lady, what the fuck? And I went, oh, I see what this is. I said, so here's what's going to happen. I said, I'm going to be up here for probably 12 or 13 more minutes. I go, you're going to go out through that door and you see that glass window. You can sit at the bar, have a drink. You're going to see me up here. When you see me get off the stage through the glass window, you can come back in. Or you can stay and shut the fuck up. I said, because if you think you're going to come in here and create a situation of non-PC scenario that never happened, it's not going to happen. This is my show. And I said, or you can go get a march. What you really need is a march. You need a march and a blog. I said, but this is not the place for you to do what you want to do. I said, unless you want to go spend 10 years on the road and kill yourself and earn the right to be on the stage. I said, but you got one or two choices. And she stayed. And the crowd applauded and whatever. And my point in that is that audiences very quickly can feel really empowered over the comedian. And for some reason...
But you're saying, well, you always have to like take back the power.
Absolutely.
You're the one on the stage.
Absolutely. I saw a comic try to be a black guy who's Jewish, and they ate him alive at Caroline's. I'm not going to say who he is. He's a really well-known comic. What's up, man? Hey, schnitzel for shit. Like all that fucking Jewish, totally Jewish, looks Jewish, talks about being Jewish. And at one point, guy up front just, this is the lesson. This is in my opinion. He's sitting back, just looking at, and I'm watching the front, like what, and I'm like, this is not working. They're not going for it. And this guy goes, hey man, he goes, what the fuck you trying to be black for? You're fucking Jewish, motherfucker. Oh, the whole place goes crazy. He lost him for the rest of the set. He got red. This is an established comic with major credits. They know.
So it doesn't matter the credits. It doesn't matter the jokes. At that point, it was just he lost crowd control.
Well, he lost their respect, right? Like, because I think it shows a lack of respect when you do that kind of thing to people and pander and think, I'm going to do this step and fetch it routine because you're black and that's all you're going to relate to. The reason I did well with the All Black Club is I was nervous and I just said, you know what? Stop. Your father put floors in for a living. Most of these people probably are at your economic strata when you were a kid. They just happen to be a fucking little darker than your old man. Just go out and fucking talk about your life. I mean, I made some jokes about being the only white guy in the room, whatever, but and that's what I did. I did fine. I didn't change my act. Because I knew if I changed my act and I try to be them and try to start talking about music that they listen to that I don't, I would lose them. Audiences are really, really intuitively smart. They're intuitively brilliant, and they can also be complete fucking assholes if you let them. And I don't know why that second one happens, but and Brian Regan said it best. He goes, it would be really boring if you killed all the time. And it kind of would be. Because you've been doing it long enough. You got that tried and true 5 minutes that kills. You do it here, and then you go to the cellar and you do it, and for some reason, only 3 minutes of it kills. I have no idea. Maybe would have something happened before you went up. Maybe a drink was spilled in that section of the room before you went. It's just unbelievably fascinating and maddening at the same time. And you do get about a 5 minute grace period. I don't know if Seinfeld said this, but I've seen it. I've seen Seinfeld go up. They go crazy, or Chappelle, crazy. Check back in 10 minutes, and if the joke isn't good, he doesn't get much of a laugh. They're pretty good about it, So, but I think being able to talk about these doubts and everything has been good for people because I feel like, and you're going to be on my show, and I've been reading up on you, and I think we share a lot of similarities, but one is this idea that you can kind of help people. I don't think I'm changing people's lives, but I do think going back to what we were talking about, by example, I mean, I get people saying to me, I'm thinking about doing this because you did it and it seemed to work out, or do you have advice? I get emails randomly from people that I don't know through my website, and I always answer them because I know probably what that person's going through because I went through it,
And, I think it is, people start off on that standard ladder that they were taught from childhood. This is the ladder you have to go on until you die. And yet we all want to do different things with our lives, and understanding the tool chest to make those decisions, and understanding the experience of others to give you permission to also make this decision is very helpful. To hear a story, to not just you telling them advice, but to them seeing by example. That's incredibly important. That's what actually plants the seeds.
Yeah, and I think I'm a good example because I wasn't God didn't touch me with comedic. It wasn't like I woke up, someone said, "You need to do this. You're a genius." I'm solid, but I had to kind of, and then then you start to develop who you are and your own persona and all that stuff after a while. But I do think that you just don't take no for an answer. You just do not take no for an answer. And I got that from my mother. My mother started this business in the 60s in a tenement house with 2 kids and one in her belly when Italian mothers stayed home and made meatballs. She started a furniture business in her fucking tenement house and then built it into a full-fledged business that's there 50 years later.
Well, Paul Mecurio, it's been so great having you on the podcast.
Thanks. I hope that wasn't boring or too long.
No, it was fantastic and fascinating. Was it fascinating?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
So, what are some credits? What are you doing right now? What do you want to...
I'm in the movie Chuck with Liev Schreiber that came out recently and is now out on DVD. I'm going to be doing another appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and I've got a couple appearances coming up on CNN that I'm going to be doing. So I'm kind of like all over the place. And then my podcast, which is on iTunes, The Paul Mecurio Show, which you're going to be on.
Yeah.
And we have something similar. I like to do one-on-one, and I wanted to do something that was just like, I either want my listeners to learn something about somebody that they think they already know, or learn about people who I think are really interesting and they should know. And so we had some really cool guests like Stephen Colbert, Bryan Cranston, Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney I got just by going up and asking him to do it. Like, you just never know, man.
That's a great set of guests. Bryan Cranston also, Stephen Colbert.
Yeah,
Jay
Bob
Leno on?
Costas, Sugar Ray Leonard, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Thomas Friedman of the New York Times. Because you get something like Thomas Friedman tells me the first time he heard a dirty joke was from Chichi Rodriguez, the golfer, on a golf course when he was 17. Like, no one, I don't think he said that to anybody. Not because I'm such a brilliant interviewer, but like, I just have a very, very kind of eclectic and wide range of interests. So I just put people on that I would want to listen to who I think add something to the conversation. Because I think podcasting could be like a nice tool where people can actually, it can help people in a way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Open their eyes into stuff and everything. So, yeah.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, man.
Fascinating story. Paul Mecurio. Do you still do warm up for Colbert, or
I
is
do
it
on
more...
and off, yeah. Oh, February 23rd and 24th. I'm going to, this is a, actually I'm going to mention, never mind. I'm going to mention a competing club in the city. No.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's Gotham. I'm headlining at Gotham College.
Okay, cool.
So,
Gotham on 23rd?
Yeah, 23rd Street. So that's unique because you don't, you only headline like once a year in the city. But anyway, this was great, man.
All right, well, thanks so much, Paul.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to going on your show.
Next time on the James Altucher Show.
Let's say someone's in their cubicle and they're listening to this and they're thinking, I've got this just chronic disappointment that I should be doing something else. They've been doing this for 30 years and now they're in their winter and they're afraid they're going to be stuck and they want to get unstuck, but they don't know what to do.
The first thing, honestly, that comes to mind for me is that old saying, your best thinking got you here. You probably need the thinking of somebody else. I often say most people live from the neck up. And if we could actually stop and feel how we really feel in our daily lives, we couldn't stand what we're doing. We'd have a really hard time stomaching.
There's two levels to that. One is this idea that most people don't know what they want. The second is whether they know what they want or not, most people are not honest with themselves about what they could or should do.
Most people, we have not been taught to be present to ourselves. Most people don't know what they want. Most people don't know who they are. We're complex beings, which is what I love so much about us. And we have an opportunity to really kind of peel back the layers and figure out what's going on.
Hey, I am so glad you listened to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Please take a moment to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is you get your podcasts. It will only take you a second, but it will help other people discover the podcast. And my goal is to share this great content with as many people as possible. To see the show notes, just head on over to jamesaltucher.com/podcast. While you are there, you can join my free insiders list to get notified when I post a new podcast. Every day, I also share my best and most controversial ideas. You won't get this stuff anywhere else. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. oracle.com/advance.